Okay, we will start today's session. I'm recording the attendance right now. So let's start the session. Till last session, we have discussed and solved numerous problems on gear design. As you are aware, the gears will be mounted on the shaft, and this rotating shaft, rotating elements need to be supported in the machine housing elements or the wherever support is required. We need to support it. Now we need the support such that the rotating elements will be offered minimum resistance. So in such cases, you need to use bearings. That is supporting element is for rotating components will be called as bearing. So we will be starting a new module today, that is rolling contact bearing. So there are different types of bearings. So out of that, we are going to learn rolling contact bearing. In today's session, we are going to cover the fundamentals of rolling contact bearing. So I have shown one picture of a roller bearing here. So it's a type of rolling contact bearing. So we are going to learn in detail the basic fundamentals today for the rolling contact bearing. Move to the next slide. Now, when we are talking about learning of bearing, so there are different types of bearings available in the market. So we are going to learn first the types of bearing. So first type of bearing is based on direction of load to be supported. Now the load, we have learned about spur gear, we have learned about helical gear, bevel gear, even you have learned about pulley arrangement, belt and pulley arrangement. So these elements are subject to tangential, radial, axial load. So these loads are transferred to the shaft, and in turn they are transferred to the bearing surface, that is bearing. So we need to support the load in a different manner. So based on the load direction, so three types of bearings are used. One is called plain bearing, another is thrust bearing, and radial bearing. Now let's understand what is meant by plain bearing. So first, what is meant by bearing? So I have written the definition here for bearing. A bearing is a machine element. It is a part of the machinery or component uh, that constrains relative motion to a desired motion. So when the shaft is rotating in a pole, the housing supporting pole, so the shaft has to rotate at its predetermined location, and it has to rotate in a circular manner. So it has to constrain that relative motion to the desired motion. So while rotating, it should not move axially also. So that is the meaning of the constraining relative motion to the desired motion and reduces friction between moving parts. When it is having relative motion with respect to the other surface, so there will be friction. So the basic element function of this bearing is to minimize this friction. So to reduce the friction between moving parts, you cannot make it zero, but you can minimize it by various means of rolling elements or adding lubrication between these surfaces. You can minimize the friction. So bearing is a machine element that constrains relative motion to only the desired motion and reduces the friction between moving parts. So we have say one element here. This is the fixed surface, and this is the moving surface. So this when this moving surface is moving on this fixed surface, there will be relative motion here. So we need to decrease the friction resistance here. So you can use different elements here. You can use lubrication. You can use the rolling elements in the form of balls, rollers, and you can reduce the friction and frictional coefficient, and you can reduce the energy loss in the friction or heat here. Now this is a plain bearing. So the example of plain bearing, you have used lathe machine. So there is a bed guideway on which you have a carriage. so on which you are supporting. So when you are feeding that tool either manually or with the help of lead screw for turning or taper turning or any other facing operation, so there is a relative motion of your carriage on a less bed surface. So uh, when you are, if there is no lubrication, if there is no proper relative motion there, I mean, so if there is no proper guideway, then you will find the carriage will not move further under the action of that load. That cutting load will be coming, the separating load will be also coming. So there may be chances this contact may lost. If this contact is lost, then the precision in the manufacturing cannot be achieved. So this is the one example I am showing, giving that your bedways, machine bedways on which if you are moving any component for feeding the tool path, then it is a precision work. So in that precision work, you need to have proper support, and the gap should be a predetermined gap. So you have to use plain bearing gap. Similarly, you are supporting rotating element. So this is for sliding motion. Suppose your object is rotating. So this is the one view, and this is the another view rotating. The shaft is rotating. So here also, this is the shaft which is supported on the surface here, which is rotating here. So the side view is shown here as a moving element which is rotating. If your element is rotary in nature and need to be supported, so there are chances your load may come in the direction of axial, that is axial load here. So to support such bearing, you require thrust bearing. So this collar, the collar provided here, as works as your thrust bearing. Now, if your load coming on your rotating shaft is say radial, then you need to support on this surface in the radial direction. So it has to take care of radial load. So this is called as radial bearing. This is called thrust bearing, and this is called plain bearing. You can see the plain bearing is a more commonly sliding bearing or slide bearing. So in railroad, it is called as solid bearing, journal bearing. So there is a separate discussion on journal bearing or friction bearing. It is the simplest type of bearing comprising of bearing surface, plain bearing surface or a curved bearing surface, depending upon the but there is no rolling element. There is no rolling or rotating element under such action here. Then thrust bearing is a particular type of rotary bearing. I told that the element is rotating here. So it is a rotary bearing. Like other bearings, they are permanent, rotate between the parts, but they are designed to support predominantly axial load. So if your load is maximum load is axial load, and there is a minor radial load also, that also can be supported by the thrust bearing. The radial bearing is a type of rotary bearing here, again designed to support radial load. It is designed to support radial load. Now this is the classification based on the direction of load. In reality, there is no typical application. There is only thrust load and there is only radial load. So every application, a small amount of radial or thrust load will be always there. So even though if you take any bearing of radial support, it also can support to some extent axial load. Or if you take any thrust bearing, it also can support to some extent a radial load. That is they are manufactured, so it can take care of that major load as well as they can take the minor load in the other direction also. Okay, so this is regarding the type of bearing based on the direction of load. So we are going to see the detail while calculating the load. We need to know this concept axial load or thrust or radial load, how to calculate. Now we have done spur gear. So in spur gear there are two types of load. That is, one is tangential load and another is radial load. So tangential load also creates a radial direction. So when you shift that tangential offset to the center line, so it will have torque as well as radial load. So so spur gear will have only radial loading, but if you take bevel gearing, if you take helical gearing, if you take worm gearing, then it will have two types of load, that is radial as well as axial load. So when we are supporting, if there are only spur gear, so you can select the radial bearing. you can select the radial bearing. Let's go to the next slide. Now, next classification I have shown here, it is based on your relative motion between the fixed surface and rotating surface, because now we are talking about rolling bearing. So I am talking about only rotating surface here. So moving surface. So this is the external surface. This surface is housing surface, and this surface is fixed surface. And inside this there is a solid shaft which is rotating. So let's say rotating or moving. It can move axially also. So those are doing the mechatronics project, mostly automation project. They are using linear bearing. So linear bearing, there is a axial motion. So moving element is there. Then now in this arrangement, we have this shaft here. Now we have enlarged that whole surface. Here the shaft and whole surface has same diameter. So we have enlarged that whole size. So in that enlarged whole size, if you apply your rolling elements, number of rolling elements in the form of spherical ball, or in the form of rollers, or in the form of spherical rollers, taper rollers, then this bearing is called as rolling contact bearing, and this bearing is called as sliding contact bearing. Okay, so basically based on the relative motion between two surfaces, you can divide the entire group of bearings into two groups, that is sliding contact bearing, rolling contact bearing. We have a separate chapter, separate module on sliding contact bearing. We will learn separately. So what do you mean by sliding contact bearing? It is a journal. Journal means bearing surface, frictional surface. This is the most common type of plain bearing. In the last slide, we have learned about plain bearing. It simply supports a hole. You may have heard the name called bush bearing. So bush bearing is a journal bearing, which is a sliding contact bearing. It is the easiest method of manufacturing bearing and low cost bearing. It is a low cost bearing. So linear, I also discussed regarding linear motion bearing, normally linear slide. So it is called linear bearing. It is designed to provide free motion in one direction, that is axial motion in one direction. I told that suppose if you are having any linear, you are providing the pathway to for a particular motion of object from one place to the other place. So if you are supporting conveyor, so conveyor should not bend. So you can support from the sideway conveyor. So where we can apply the linear bearing, and they will take care of the load coming on that conveyor. So conveyor may be used for transmitting the material as well as transmitting the live load also. There are many types of linear motion bearing. So depending upon the application, you can use linear bearings also. Now the most important bearing we are going to learn from today's session onward, that is rolling contact bearing. So as I explained, in this space we use rolling elements. So rolling element bearing or rolling contact bearing is a bearing which carries load by placing rolling elements. By placing rolling elements such as balls and rollers between two bearings, bearing rings. In detailed construction, we will see in the next slide. The relative motion of the races causes the rolling element to roll with a little rolling resistance and with little sliding. To the sliding contact bearing. So if there is no lubricant here, it will have high amount of coefficient of friction. But without lubrication also, you will have very less amount of coefficient of friction. So it will waste minimum energy. There is a chances you may waste more energy here in the friction. Okay. So these are the classification based on your relative motion. Let's move to the next slide, where we will see the construction detail. Okay, so I'm talking about the construction detail of rolling contact bearing. There are different types of bearings. Again, classification of rolling contact bearing I'm seeing in the next slide. So what basically the rolling contact bearing consists of? So rolling contact bearing consists of two races. One is called inner race. This is the inner race. This part is inner race. It's a broken view so that you can see the details. And there is the outer race. This part is outer race. And in between inner race and outer race, the rolling elements are placed. Rolling elements. So this is the spherical ball bearing. So these are spherical balls are placed. These should not come outside this engagement. So this inner race will have some groove as well as outer race will have some groove here. You can see this groove shape here. This is the inner race groove shape and this is the outer race groove shape. So if you take a cross section here, so you can show this is a rectangular cross section here, and in this the outer race will have this curvature outside, and inner race will have curvature inside. So in this curvature, your balls can be fitted. Your balls can be fitted. Now the balls should be equally spaced. They should be equally spaced. They should not come out of this assembly. So there is a caging. So there is a cage available. There is a metallic or plastic cage will be provided depending upon the load coming there. If there is a more amount of axle load coming, then this cage should be also strong. So metallic cage will be provided. So in this metallic cage, these balls, spherical elements or rolling elements are housed there. So similarly, you can have roller that is roller bearing. So the rolling element instead of spherical ball, it will be cylindrical roller. It will be cylindrical roller. Similarly, you can have spherical roller. So this is a spherical roller. Spherical roller means what? You will have here the surface straight. Now here the surface is not straight. The surface is a curved nature. That is a convex surface will be there. It has a length like this roller, but it has a curvature here. So you can say this is double row. So depending upon the capacity, you can have single row, double row. Depending accordingly, the width will be changing. So rolling element bearing ride on races that I explained. These are the two races. These are the two races here, and these are the two races here. Normally, the large race, that is the outside race. This outside race goes into the housing bore of the outer race. Is called as outer race. Now, whenever we have to place this bearing with on the shaft and the housing, that larger race, that is the outer race, will be placed in the housing hole, and the smaller race rides on the shaft. That is called as inner race. The rolling elements and races are made up of hardened steel material because they have to they are coming and they are having large amount of friction here. So they have to support very heavy load, and the contact here, the contact here is normally a point contact or maximum a line contact in this case here. So there is a large amount of surface stress that is called, we call it is contact stress. To bear that contact stress, you require material with high strength. So you cannot use normal material for manufacturing the bearing. So you have to use good quality steel material, and this steel material also need to be hardened. So basically the raw material for this constructing inner race, outer race as well as rolling elements, even sometimes this cage sometimes is also made up of hardened steel material depending upon the requirement. But normally the cage is not hardened in URI case, but in special case the cage also can be hardened. You can see the cage shape here. The cage shape for rolling elements will be different, and it is not mandatory that URI bearing will have cage. It is not a mandatory requirement. Inner race, outer race is a mandatory requirement. Rolling element is mandatory requirement, but providing cage is an supplementary function. So depending upon the application only, this cage will be provided. If you go for a very small capacity bearing and we have to support very, very small radial load, then you may find in that bearing there is no cage at all. So cage is an optional element. To restrict the axial moment of rolling element, that moment of this roller to come outside and they may come together, and other side may be a gap. To avoid that, they need to be caged depending upon the requirement. I am saying depending upon the requirement. So every time you need not to cage this rolling element. Now when we design this rolling element here, So what is the basic and critical parameter design? So you have learned shaft design in machine design one. So your shaft size is fixed based on the standard dimension of the shaft. So similarly, there is a standardization for rolling element. So this hole, that is the bore, we call it is bore in the bearing. So this bore corresponds to the shaft size, so the standard shaft size. So this bore is a critical diameter. Then the outside diameter, which will be fitting into the housing, this outside diameter which will be fitting into the housing is your critical diameter, and the width, that is how much width is required to mount to the support. Sometimes you may have seen the application that bearing is mounted, and sometimes you see that this width of the bearing is more than the housing thickness, and this bearing width may come out. Actually, it is recommended that whatever the size of the bearing you require, it will have standard width, and your housing width also should be at least equal to that width. So sometimes what happens, if you provide that much width, suppose this is required say 25 mm, then what happens if you are creating a housing of 25 mm thickness, then the weight as well as the cost as well as the it becomes very heavy for gearboxes or any other application. Then in such cases, your housing can be lesser than this width, but where you are housing, only that portion in the casting will be made equal to the width of this bearing. That is, and then that surface will be spot face. That you may have seen, the housing has uniform thickness everywhere except the bore, the where you are putting your bearing. So at that bore place, you find them some extra thickness there, and extra length of the means the diameter of that space, that is called spot facing. So there will be a bossing arrangement in the casting. So the boss will be created, and you can mount your bearing with that required width on the housing. Now, since you require more capacity, so you may have to use a number of rollers here also, as well as you may need additional rows. So this is a double row spherical roller bearing. So these need to be sometimes separated. They will be separated physically. They may not be separated depending upon the requirement. So if you want to enhance your load carrying capacity, then sometimes it is not possible to use a single row ball bearing to take care of that. So then you have to increase this width and add more rolling elements. You can add double row, triple row depending upon the requirement. Normally, no rolling element is triple of four. Only single and double row bearings are used into the application. So the critical parameters in the bearing are bore diameter, that is this diameter, that is where the shaft hits in the with respect to the inner race. Outer diameter, this is the outer diameter which fitted into the housing box, and the width of the bearing, this width of the bearing. So based on that, the this rolling element dimensions are fixed. Let's go to the next slide. I have talked about various types of rolling. In that previous diagram, I have shown only three types of rollers. So you are now you are mostly familiar with your ball bearing, that is a spherical bearing. Then you are also familiar to some extent with cylindrical roller bearing. So this is a cylindrical roller bearing. Now, if you take this cylinder, having this is the length and this is the diameter. Now, if you take lesser diameter, then your cylinder becomes slender. Your cylinder becomes slender. So, if you use slender rollers into the bearing, then it is called as needle roller. So, here L by D is greater than 1. Please remember here the L by D is greater than 1. So, here the L by D, this is the L, this is the D. So, slenderness ratio may be greater than 4 or 5 in needle roller. For cylindrical rollers, it may be of the order of maximum L by D may be maximum 2. So it will not be a cylinder. It will be a, solid, bigger rolling element. So spherical, then roller, cylindrical roller. Again, cylindrical roller having L by D ratio greater, that is slenderness greater. Then it is called needle roller. Then we'll have this cylinder. Now this cylindrical surface, this instead of making keeping it shape, you can convert into the different shape. You can convert into the taper roller. You can convert it into the taper roller. So if you turn this surface here, if you turn this surface here, you turn the surface in this direction and in this direction here. So you'll have smaller diameter here and bigger diameter here. So that is called as taper roller bearing. That is called tapering element, taper roller. So if you use taper roller in bearing, then it is called taper roller bearing. Similarly, instead of having straight surface, here also it is straight surface, here also it's straight surface, you can make this surface curved in nature. So this is a symmetrical curve from the center of this roller, from the length, it on both sides the curvature is equal. On the both sides the curvature is equal. So it is a symmetrical spherical roller. Similarly, you can have this curvature not symmetrical, that is asymmetrical. So you can take a taper roller and turn in the form of curvature. You can turn in the form of curvature. So this is asymmetrical spherical roller. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 varieties of rolling elements can be used in the your rolling contact base. Mostly you are familiar with this, and this type. Very rarely you may have seen needle roller, and these are the special applications. The spherical rollers or spherical asymmetrical rollers. These are very important from the perspective of self-alignment principle. So when you have visited any automobile care center, so there is a wheel balancing concept. So mostly the wheel balancing is carried out with the help of proper usage of bearing. So if you use self-aligned bearing, so you require minimum wheel balancing. You require minimum wheel balancing for the automobile. Let's go to the next. Okay, so we have learned what is meant by sliding contact bearing, what do you mean by rolling contact bearing. Then we have learned what are the different types of rolling elements. By using this rolling element, you can make various types of rolling contact bearing. So you can have first the type I shown here is deep groove ball bearing. So let's understand what is meant by deep groove ball bearing. Here the rolling element used is spherical balls. Number of spherical balls will be used. Now, while placing this spherical ball, it has to be placed between inner race. This is the inner race and this is the outer. So while placing this spherical balls here, you have to provide a seating area in the outer race as well as seating area in the inner race. So you have to create a groove there. So if this groove depth is greater, then it is called as deep groove. If this groove depth is small, then it is normal spherical bearing or ball bearing. So deep groove ball bearing has slightly higher depth so that the balls will not come out and they can take radial load as well as to some extent 30 to 40% of the axial load. Means if your radial load is 100 Newton, so deep groove ball bearing can take up to 40 Newton axial load because this curved surface can offer resistance in axial direction also. Then you will have cylindrical roller. So you have cylinder here. You have inner race, outer race. Sometimes they will be provided with some small groove here, or sometimes they will not be provided with any groove. So cylindrical roller bearing. So you are using cylindrical roller with groove, without groove also. Sometimes groove may be provided only on either inner race or outer race, or sometimes it is provided on both. Here it is provided on both. For roller bearing, it is normally provided on only one surface, normally provided on the your outer race. Then there is a concept called angular contact bearing. You will have your rollers here, spherical roller ball. Now you will have the inner race and outer race. Instead of making a groove, there will be one side thickness of inner race will be less, and another side the thickness of inner race will be more. And there is a curved surface created at the to create a seat for the ball here. Exactly opposite, that is the outer race, will have lesser thickness here and more thickness here, and this material will be cut and it will be created an angular surface here. So why it is called angular contact bearing? So when you mount your ball, the reaction here, now the reaction here is normal, that is in this direction. Reaction here is also normal here, reaction offered by this. Now, but in this case, the reaction offered to this rolling element is an angular in nature. So this is so reaction here is angular, so that's why it is called as angular contact bearing. Similar reaction will come from the inner race, which will be having similar direction, but opposite to this angular direction. So when these angular contact bearings are, they need to be manufactured with precision. So when you place this spherical balls here, the direction of this angular reactions should be co-directional and they should be opposing to each other. Then there is a concept of self-aligning bearing. So in self-aligning bearing, that is self-aligning bearing, either both the or one of the rays will have curvature throughout its length. You can see this is the curvature here for outer rays. This is the curvature for the outer rays. So these will take care of any misalignment in your shafting. So that is they follow the basic principle of alignment, self alignment, and if there is a small error in the alignment, it will be taken care by the self aligning bearing. So if you cannot make your axis coaxial with application, so it is better to use self-aligning bearing rather than deep groove balling. Otherwise, they will have more load and there is a chances they will wear out faster. Self-aligning bearing will facilitate the assembly easy as well as they will take care of load is coming in any direction. So this is the self-aligning your ball bearing. Similarly, you can have self-aligning roller bearing here. This is the concept of self-aligning is explained here. This is your shaft. In this hole, your shaft is fitted. So if this shaft is inclined to some extent, the axis of bearing where you are mounted and axis of the shaft is not in line, that is called they are misaligned. So if that misalignment has an angle alpha, even then if you have the surface properly curved, then this will be fall under self-aligning bearing. So this angular misalignment or angularity in the shaft axis will be taken care. So I talked about needle bearing. So when your roller length is greater than diameter, so you use needle bearing. So this is the outer race, this is inner race, and these are the rolling elements which have larger length. So rolling needle roller bearings are used when you have very small space to mount the bearing. So there is a limit on the external diameter. Suppose this diameter cannot be very large. If you use and you require larger capacity bearing, then you have to use larger roller diameter, so which increases this diameter. And if there is a constraint on increasing this diameter, then you can go for needle ball bearing, and you can increase this to take care of more support, and you can keep this diameter same, and you can take care of that load. Sometimes sometimes the constraint is such that the diameter has to be in the fixed range. Then in that case, you have to remove this inner race itself to mount that bearing. You have to remove the inner race. So needle bearings may come with inner race or without inner race also. Many times needle roller bearing comes without inner race, so that it can be mounted in very small space. Then we have taper roller bearing here. So when the axle load amount is very large, then your deep groove ball bearing and cylindrical roller bearings are not of use. So you have to use the taper roller bearing. So taper roller bearing can take the load in both the direction. So this is the rolling element in the form of taper roller, and this is the rolling element in the form of spherical roller. So these are the spherical roller bearing. This is the taper roller bearing. Even you can use the rolling elements to create the thrust to take care of thrust load, especially vertical shaft. So you will have the bottom race here, which is thick. The top race, which will be connected to this collar, and which can take, even it can be welded to sometimes, and which can rotate, which is rotating. And then there is a supporting element, maybe in the form of your spherical balls, or you can use rollers also here. And there will be this top race and bottom race will be hit. So it can take care of your axial load or vertical load or thrust load. So thrust ball bearing is also possible. Thrust roller bearing is also possible to be manufactured. So I have written the text content here. Do ball bearing, this part has deeper cavities, I assert, to accommodate inner deeper cavities in inner and outer race to house the rolling element. Then angular contact bearing usually has asymmetric races. They are not similar. They are have asymmetric, means their shape are different. Inner and outer race shape are different. The axial load passes in straight line through the bearing. In such case, the axial load has to pass exactly through the center line, whereas radial load take an oblique path. Radial load now will take oblique path, means angular bearing. So that separates the races separately. So the angular contact on the inner race has the same as that of outer race. So the contact here and contact here should be at perfect location, so that the angular support direction should be opposing to each other. Then cylindrical roller bearing, this part, cylindrical roller bearing and needle bearing, that is this part, are designed to take large amounts of radial load. So needle bearing is a type of roller bearing where slender rollers, that is needles, are used in the construction. So these are the slender rollers, or L by D ratio greater than 4 or 5, they are used here. Taper roller bearing, that is these taper roller bearing, are used for large value of axial load. Spherical roller bearing, this part, spherical roller bearing, this part, are used in many applications due to self-aligning principle. So they have many applications because of self-aligning principle. Most of the automobile components, they use the self-aligning bearing, because there is a misalignment during operation, so it has to be taken care by the bearing itself. So let's go to the next slide. So I am showing one manufacturing process uh, uh, by Escape. We are going to use Escape catalog. That's why I am showing this. You may not hear the sound, but you can see the visual. So there is a text written on that visual also, so you can understand it. The 4-minute video. This is a double row spherical roller bearing. They are writing the code there, manufacturing code there, as well as their standard specification by using code. Final assembly. So they are covered that rollers inside, so they should not come out. This is the testing, quality test, last quality test. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. Now, I have shown the video with a purpose here. You may ask, sir, why only escape video you have shown? Because basically, the data table provided in the PhD data book has PhD escape catalog. So the bearing catalog provided for selection purpose here is an escape catalog. Escape has a number of manufacturing plants. One such plant is in Pune also, as well as they have ancillary plants in Nashik also. The Pune plant is bigger plant, and they manufacture large amount of ball bearing here. The plant shown right now was a Lytton plant. They manufacture your roller bearings, cylindrical roller bearings or spherical roller bearings. So we have to refer a manufacturing catalog. I am saying manufacturing catalog of this company, Escape Bearing or any other company, and from that manufacturing catalog, you are going to select a bearing. We are not going to design a bearing, please remember, because we can, if you design and tell, please manufacture this bearing, nobody will manufacture. They will say, we are manufacturing this bearing. See that, can you use any one of this bearing in your application? So it is a process. It is a selection process. So to facilitate that selection, depending upon your requirement. If you have ball bearing, they will have separate ball bearing catalog. If you are asking for double row ball bearing, there is a separate double row ball bearing catalog, roller bearing catalog, and then from the requirement, as per your application need and as per your load requirement, you can select the right bearing for right application. So to facilitate that selection, there are numerous terms you have to learn. One such term we are learning today, and remaining terms we will learn in the next classes. It's called static load carrying capacity. So this value is tabled. This value is tabled in their catalog for different types of bearing. They will table this value, and based on that, you can select if your load carrying capacity requirement find out. From there, you can select the appropriate bearing. So to evaluate load carrying capacity, we are taking one shaft or inner race. This is a spherical roller supported. So load is external load of C0 amount is taken, which may be say maximum capacity of that bearing as load carrying capacity. We are considering this is a static load. So your shaft is at stationary condition. So static load is defined as the load acting on the bearing when the shaft is stationary. So we are talking about stationary load at this moment. So it produces when it is stationary. So the what will be happening? This lower balls, lower sphere, and there will be upper sphere. But upper spheres by way of this load acting in the downward direction, upper spheres will not be loaded much. Most of the rollers are loaded at the bottom, so they will deform. They will deform permanently to some extent. So it produces permanent deformation in balls and races, which increases with increasing load. As you increase this external load, the permanent deformation will increase. So to define this C0, so this is the definition. The static load carrying capacity C0 of a bearing is defined as the static load which corresponds to total permanent deformation of these balls and races at the most heavily stressed point of contact. At the most heavily stressed point of contact, in this case, it is here. So at this point, how much is the deformation? And if that deformation is equal to 0.001 times the ball diameter, so that load, that static load is called as static load carrying capacity C0. Okay. So let's evaluate this value for C0 by making some calculation here. So we have taken number of balls here, equally spaced spherical balls here. So here we are assuming this resistance offered by this ball is say P1. The radial resistance offered by this roller is P2. Again, this is symmetric, so this will be also P2. Here P3. This is symmetric, so this will be also P3 and so on. So to make this calculation easy, let's make some assumption. So the assumption, first assumption, the races are rigid and retain their circular shape. So whatever the inner race and whatever there is the outer race here, they are rigid and they are retaining their circular shape. The balls are equally spaced, as that I have told. This is P2 and this is P2 means they are equally spaced. This angle is beta, also this angle will be beta. Then the balls in the upper half do not support any load. So above this level, there are balls here, but these balls doesn't support any load under static conditions. They don't support any load under static conditions. These are the three assumptions. So considering these three assumptions, we can write down the equilibrium. This is an equilibrium problem. So considering the equilibrium of forces, so downward force, this is the downward force, C naught should be equal to the upward forces. So we have upward force P1 plus twice P2. Upward force will be twice P2 cos beta, then twice P3 cos 2 beta, and so on. Now these forces will have another component, that is horizontal force, but the horizontal force component of this P2 and horizontal force component of this P2 being equally spaced, they will cancel each other. So the in the horizontal direction there is no force acting in this plane at this moment. So under this action of this force C naught, there will be deformation of rolling element. There will be deformation of this rolling element and the inner race, this inside part, and they will be deformed by radial distance delta 1. So let's assume that deformation is delta 1 here. So let's see that deformation diagram in the next slide. Okay, so that inner race has deformed as well as rolling elements are deformed here at the most heavily stretched point is equal to delta 1. So what will be happening? The center is shifted to O dash. Original center of O is shifted to O dash for the inner race. Now this is the amount of deformation. For exaggeration purpose, it is shown very big here. In reality, this deformation is in micron. Please remember, this deformation is in micron. You cannot see by eye also. So for exaggeration understanding purpose, it is exaggerated, and this deformation is delta 1. Now looking at this diagram, now this is P2 here, this is P1, here was P2, here was P3. This angle is beta, this angle was 2 beta here. And now this distance is delta 1. This distance here is delta 1 in the vertical direction. Then what is the distance in radial direction? So radial direction distance here we are assuming is delta 2. So what is the relation between delta 2 and delta 1? So from this figure, you can see here, this is the radial direction, then horizontal, then this is vertical. So here we have right angle. So this side is the side of the right angle and this is the hypotenuse. So delta 2 will be equal to delta 1 cos beta. So you can take this delta 1 on this side. So delta 2 by delta 1 in this case will be cos beta 1. Now this deformation will be defined by load acting here. What is the reaction here? So that reaction we are calling as P, P1, P2, P3 depending upon the rolling position. So according to Hertz equation, the deformation delta is directly proportional to the support reaction raised to 2 by 3. So if you are calculating here, then it will be delta 1. So you can write down delta 1 here. Now this proportionality sign will be replaced by a constant. That constant we are assuming as P1. Load acting there was in the previous diagram you have seen that load was P1 raised to 2 by 3. Similarly, this radial deformation here, radial deformation I'm talking about delta 2 can be written again. Material is same, situation is same, the constant will remain same. So constant will be P1 only. Only load radial load will be changing, that is radial support reaction will be P2 raised to 2 by 3. Now again you can take a ratio here delta 2 by delta 1, P1 will get cancelled out. So what will have the relation here for delta 2 by delta 1 is equal to P2 by P1 raised to 2 by 3. Again we know delta 2 by delta 1 by this relation, delta 2 by delta 1 by this relation is cos beta. So you can write down P2 by P1 raised to 2 by 3 is equal to cos beta. And from this you can identify the P2 value in terms of P1. So P2 is equal to P1 raised to P1 into cos beta raised to 3 by 2. So this 2 by 3 will come here as 3 by 2. So P1 into cos beta in raised to 3 by 2. Similarly, the load acting here, that support reaction acting here is P3. So similarly, you can evaluate P3. So P3 will be P1 into the angle here. This angle is now 2 beta. So cos 2 beta bracket raised to 3 by 2. So these values will be put in the your load carrying capacity P naught equation in the previous slide. So I am putting that P1 plus twice value of P2 here. The cos beta is there earlier. So P2 value is this value. Then similarly plus twice P3 value here. Cos 2 beta was earlier there. Plus P4 value. Cos 3 beta was earlier there, and so on. N number of elements will be there. So in this, what we find, P1 is common everywhere. P1 is common everywhere. So we can take P1 outside, and remaining bracket will be 1 plus 2 into cos beta raised to 5 by 2 plus 2 into cos 2 beta raised to 5 by 2, and so on. So since this value, now if you look at this figure, once we decide the number of rollers to be used in that bearing, that beta is fixed. Suppose I use only 4 rollers, then beta will be 90 degree. If I use say 6 rollers, then the beta will be 36, 360 degree divided by 6. If I use 10 rollers, then beta will be 36. If I use 6 rollers, then beta will be 60 degree. If I use 12 rollers, then beta will be 12. So this is dependent on angle beta. So angle beta is defined by number of rollers here. How many number of rollers are equispaced here? So based on that, what we conclude that this is a constant, but this constant depends upon the number of rolling elements. So I can write P naught is equal to P1M. P naught is equal to P1M, and this constant can be written here. To evaluate now the value of constant, if I can take value of Z is equal to 1, 2, 3, 4. If we take this value very large, for large number of rolling elements Z, large number of rolling elements, suppose use greater than 12 or greater than 20 rolling elements, then this Z by M ratio, that Z by M ratio is fixed, that is 5. This ratio comes up to be 5. There is a solution for this. We are not going into the detail because it is not part of our exercise. So Z for large value of rolling elements means large number of rolling elements to be used in the bearing, that Z by M is equal to 5. So we can write down M is equal to Z by 5. So we can put in this equation M is equal to Z by 5. So we have C naught is equal to 1 upon 5 Z into P1. And this value of P1 here, what is the P1 radial reaction acting, depends upon the rolling diameter here. Depends upon the rolling diameter, how much reaction can be offered. So P1 will be equal to KD square. So K is a constant and D is the diameter of that rolling element. D is the rolling element diameter here, maybe spherical ball element or roller element diameter here. Now we can put this value in this equation and we get an equation called C naught is equal to Z KD square by 5. And this equation is called as Tyvek equation. Sometimes this equation is asked for 5 or 8 marks in the first question or in the further question. Write down the derivation for Tyvek equation or static load carrying capacity equation. So this is a static capacity. So when they are manufacturing the bearing, they know number of how many rolling elements they are using. They know this K value because they are selecting based on their material property. This value depends upon the material property. Diameter, what size of diameter they are using, they are knowing. So they create a table value for different bearings based on for this C naught. And this table value is provided by the manufacturer. This table value is provided by the manufacturer. So this is regarding load, static load carrying capacity. This is one of the important parameters. And remaining parameter we will be seeing in the next lecture. So if you have any queries, you can ask. So I have completed delivery from my side. But if you have any query, you can type in the chat box so I can answer that query. So I'm stopping my recording.